100 years ago, Universal Studios released The Phantom of the Opera. This would be their second horror movie centered on a monster lead character. 2 years prior, Universal Studios released The Hunchback of Notre Dame, starring Lon Chaney. Due to its success, Chaney returned to play the next titular monster. Both of Chaney's performances would become prototypes to Universal's soon-to-be monster franchise. The Phantom of the Opera would go on to be the more associated of the two monsters and become Chaney's most famous role. Production of The Phantom of the Opera began when the founder of Universal Studios, Carl Laemmle, visited Paris, France. During his vacation, Laemmle became fascinated with the Paris Opera House and met the author of the original novel, Gaston Leroux. Leroux gave Laemmle a copy of his novel, causing him to buy the film rights soon after. The Phantom of the Opera premiered September 6, 1925 at the Astor Theater in New York City. The story takes place at the Paris Opera House. The venue has been recently purchased by a man named Lon Chaney and his brother. The opera, Faust, is showing, and Raoul's partner, Christine Doyer, wants to be a part of the production. However, Raoul wants her to leave so they can be married. Raoul is told by the previous owners that the opera house is supposedly haunted by a phantom. Christine hears a voice convincing her to stay and not get married. The cast of the production sees shadows of the phantom stalking them while they rehearse. The current star of the production, Carlotta, finds a letter from the phantom threatening to let Christine replace her, or else there will be great misfortune. Carlotta refuses to be replaced. This causes the phantom to drop the chandelier and kill audience members. Later, the phantom attracts Christine into his cellars under the opera house. He reveals his name to be Eric and confesses his love to her. He forces her to stay with him as he plays for her. Christine rips the phantom's mask off him, revealing his disfigured face. Christine is able to escape, while the phantom attends the masked ball dressed as the Red Death. Christine finds Raoul and insists on performing once before they leave. Before the final performance, a body is found hanging from the rafts of the stage. Christine is kidnapped by the phantom. Raoul and the detective Ledoux find the phantom's cellars, but are trapped. As the phantom holds Christine hostage, a mob swarms into the phantom's cellars. They chase him out of the opera house and into the streets of Paris. They are able to catch him, kill him, and throw his body into the river. Raoul and Christine are finally able to be married and have their honeymoon. The film has differences from its source material. Most notable is how the phantom dies. In the novel, a note from the phantom is found expressing love to Christine one last time, alluding to suicide from a broken heart. The film had multiple endings throughout its rewrites. The first ending was accurate to the novel, but the studio thought it was uninteresting. Among other rewrites, the phantom dies in Christine's arms after she kisses him. The studio did not approve until the ending was more climactic. Eric's backstory in the novel says his face was since birth. The film also says this, but that it was during the Boulevard Massacre, and he was exiled to Devil's Island for being criminally insane. The novel describes Eric to be more sophisticated. He had traveled across the world and learned several talents. He studied architecture in Persia, spent time in Asia, learned ventriloquism, and was a self-taught musician. The film shows the phantom using some of these talents, and also says he is a master of black arts. In a chapter of Leroux's novel, Christine visits her father's grave. This scene was shot, but was removed after the original director left the project. The character in the novel, referred to as the Persian, is named Ledoux in the film. He is a detective in the film, and similar to the novel, he helps Raoul rescue Christine. The Phantom of the Opera is what Lon Chaney has become most famous for. This is because he both played and designed the monster. The makeup used to create the Phantom is what proved him to be the man of 1,000 faces. Chaney's techniques would become industry standards for artists that followed. Chaney based his work off the novel, making his depiction the most accurate to Gaston Leroux's description. Illustrations by André Castonnet were also influences for Chaney's makeup. Leroux described the phantom as a death's head with no nose and sunken eye sockets that glow yellow. Lon Chaney achieved this by stuffing his cheeks with cotton, wearing false teeth, and accentuating shadows under his eyes with grease paint. His ears were taped back with spirit gum, and he elongated his forehead with a skull cap. The most iconic feature is the phantom's nose. This was done by using wires in his nostrils, which caused bleeding throughout filming. Chaney's face is said to have caused audience members to faint in theaters. The scene where the phantom's face is revealed is considered by many to be the first jump scare. Although the film had positive reviews after its premiere, the production of the film was difficult. The original director, Rupert Julian, did not get along with the film crew, especially Lon Chaney. The director was apparently difficult to work with and amateurish to the point where Chaney refused to speak to him. Rupert Julian left the project after reviews of test screening were negative. The next director, Edward Sedgwick, reshot many new scenes, but with the intent of making the film more comedic. The second cut of the film was again so poorly received that it was put into the hands of the editors to create a workable story. Most of the scenes shot by Sedgwick were cut except for the new ending. This was the version that premiered at the Astor Theater on September 6th. Its original release was able to gross $2 million. In 1929, Universal Studios wanted to make a sequel to the film titled Return of the Phantom and planned to have Gaston Leroux write the script. Lon Chaney would not be able to play the Phantom now that he was under contract with MGM. Due to this, Universal decided to make a sound version of the 1925 film and keep the Phantom silent. The final director, Ernst Lemley, was hired to shoot new scenes. Cast members of the original, such as Mary Philbin and Norman Carey, returned to their roles. The sound version of the film gained an extra $1 million at the box office. However, most of the sound version has become lost. Some scenes have survived, including Carlotta singing and dialogue from Phantom's servant. Chaney was upset with the decision to make a sound version of the original. He would pass away a year later in 1930 due to throat cancer. His last film was The Unholy Three, and would be his only speaking role. His relationship with Universal Studios is unknown and unclear if he would return to play future roles as a monster. In 2014, the replica of the Paris Opera House was removed from the Universal Studios backlots. Throughout the set's lifespan, it was used for countless other projects, including other Universal monster features. The set built inside Soundstage 28 was 90 years old and was known to be the oldest standing film set at the time. Knowing what version of the film you're watching today has become confusing. Multiple versions were made throughout the film's production, with only pieces of each surviving. The first two versions of the film, directed by Rupert Julian and Edward Sedgwick, only survived from what the editors decided to keep for the film's official premiere. Since the film's official release, it was discovered that there are two versions of it, most likely for one to be sent out to foreign markets. The most well-known of the two has become known as the Eastman print. It is in better quality, contains the more iconic shot of the Phantom's face, and has color tinting. The other version from 1925 has been reconstructed after compiling the best quality surviving prints. The two versions were discovered by comparing slight, unmatching camera angles and different takes of the actors. It is most noticeable when looking side by side as the Phantom's face is revealed. The angles of the two cameras do not sync with each other. The final and most obvious is the 1929 version and what remains of it. The majority of the silent scenes in this version come from the Eastman print. The most frustrating detail found has been the mystery of the man with a lantern. At the very beginning of the film, a man with a lantern walks into frame. He appears to be speaking to the audience, but he stays silent. The Phantom's shadow is briefly seen in the background, followed by a close-up of the man. He walks out of frame and the film begins. This would easily be solved if this was only seen in the 1929 version, but it is seen in the 1925 version. This brings up the questions. What is the man saying? Who is he? Why is he there? To this day, it's still a mystery. Aspects of each of these have been compiled into edits of the film found today. If you find an edit with the Lantern Man, color tinting, and scenes with sound, then this is why. Even more discoveries are being found today. There was 17 minutes of color footage discovered in 2020 by the Dutch Eye Film Museum. The footage is of the masked ball and the ballet scenes. Universal's adaptation of Phantom of the Opera would enter the public domain in 1953, allowing countless re-edits of the film to be made. For a film that is now 100 years old, more continues to be discovered, causing more reason to be rewatched.